And what we'll do is we'll actually get people to just do some basic cutting. We'll add some keys, those kinds of things. So the MEs, and we have the memory section. I really like the fact that this thing's touch drive, so if I want to change the context of the switcher, if I want to change what my keyers are doing, if I want to change it to my aux bus, these are auxes, my memory banks, I can change my memory banks, custom controls, and I can select them from the panel, which is kind of cool. If I want to get back, now it's back to the way that it was. So, and every one of these has some touch drive component, which is kind of fun, right? So, next door to the ME, we have the memory bank. This is where we're going to store and recall the more complex effects. We can store and recall things for ME program preview. We can restore and recall things for ME1. We can store and recall things for, or effects for mini ME 1 through 4. And so you can have lots of different effects in lots of different places and just recall them. You can record the entire switcher or just that specific set of effects. So there's a way for us, and those are called inclusions. So what do I want to include in my effect? Oh, it's going to be mini ME1 or mini ME2 or what have you. So that's something for us to kind of bear in mind. All right. Next door to the, oh, I should mention the other thing. Other things in here would be things like effect rates, effect dissolve transition rates, key rates, ME rates. The rates refer to, so if I wanted to change the key rate, that's the rate that would be the auto transition. If I change the ME rate, that's the rate that's connected to the auto transition button. So I can do that here. I can also do that here on the touch drive. So that's kind of a cool effect. Next door to the memories, normally what would happen is you'd have about a 2 to 3 hour lab where we would actually go through most of the components and people would get to play directly on them. We have limited amounts of time. So what has to happen is I got to give you little chunks and then try to use it relatively quickly. I looked ahead at the schedule last night. Turns out these are the last 2 games that are coming up here. So we're not going to do away hockey. We're not doing away volleyball. We're not bringing signals back and doing games. So this is our last set of games before Christmas. I'm actually kind of it's all right. If we can get through Friday and Saturday, then after that it's all gravy. Maybe we'll even get to go skiing. Yeah, which would be good. Okay, stories out of school. The other thing that we have are the keyers. So the keyers, you've got 4 of them. There are 4 keyers for ME program preview, 4 keyers for ME1, and you have 2 keyers for the mini ME. So they are a reduced feature set, right? And there are only so many chroma keys. There are 6 chroma keyers, and there are only so many channels of DVE. I believe it's up to 6 channels on this. You can go up to 8, and some boxes will have 12 or 16 channels of DVE. That means I can have a manipulation somewhere on the switcher. If I run out of channels, then I might not be able to perform DVE transitions. So when we want to set up a key, we're going to select that key. We're going to select its key type down here on the switcher. And you can actually do that in the Live Assist panel as well, but I find doing it on the hardware is actually easier. So we select the key we want to manipulate. We select what type of key it is. The types of keys you have are self key. That's going to be a luminance key. It's based on the video levels. You have an auto key that's based on the alpha channel. It's coming from a character generator, or in some cases we might have animations that would play off of Mira. And so you would have an animation and it's fill. And you can combine those things as a key and alpha, or alpha and fill combination, bring them into the switcher, and you can do a shaped, or what we call a linear key. The next one would be chroma key. And you can see that this changes as I go from one type of key to another type of key. So it automatically brings this up, so I can then say, oh, they're standing in front of green, I'm going to initialize that. You can texturize, so global parameters, chroma key, wedge key parameters, detail key parameters. You've got spill control over here, and what you want to do is to initialize that chroma key to make it work. Now we're not doing any chroma key at this particular juncture, but that's how you would change it. Go back to select, I can go back to my auto key, and then I can choose my key source. And so you can see the key sources change in the touch drive. It tells you what's going to be keyed. In this case, key 1 will be expression. When I pressed on that, it gives me all the different key parameters. I can go in and I can change It's not like giving me change, it should be giving me rate changes there. If I wanted to, then I could say, okay, well, key rate, maybe I wanna make it 10. Now it's 10 frames. So I thought it actually allowed me to change it here, but it's forcing me to go back to the memory panel. So if I wanna go 15, enter, no, it's 15. I wanna go back to 8, click there, and then that's as simple as that to change what's happening with this auto transition. The same thing would happen here. So if I press this guy, it says, oh, you want that ME rate to be 20 frames? Okay, now it's 20 frames. So it's really simple to make manipulations on the switcher. That's how the keyers work. Then we go back to here and we can see that I'll bring up a font, the locators in, and then we can bring that in. And I'll cut this to error. So we can actually have, and we'll put something else in preview. So we can get in and out of our keys by using the auto transition and the cut button. So I can cut a key on, I can cut a key off, I can transition it in, I can transition it out. When we are doing our shows, we're going to be running something called Keys Hot. So Keys Hot just basically means that we're going to have a key on the air, and the only thing we're going to get rid of it for will be things for like replay, and that we'll talk about in just a moment. Okay, there should be a way for us to get that. Yeah, if you'll notice, there's a little up arrow there. So when I made that manipulation, I go into this key, and maybe I want to change rate. Now I want to get back to the way it looked before. There's this little back arrow here. That's back to where it was. So it's a pretty cool piece of technology, really. So that's kind of fun. All right, the last one, and maybe I can get you guys to just shove down that way a little bit. This is really, really hard to do in a limited space and with one machine, right? Okay, the transition group. This is a really important one. And Dawson, I'm gonna get you to come in here a little bit because this is gonna be something you're concerned with. All right, right now, I'll take that key out so it doesn't confuse it. A background transition happens between program and preset. So if I want to be making dissolves, I can use the auto button, I can press the cut button, I can preview a source. I don't have a lot of sources up right now, so I'll just use the media groups. I can dissolve. And that's, again, a background level transition. A key level transition allows me, and I'll go back to a different graphic here. I'll put this guy, and oops, come here, I want you on the air. There you go. I could bring that in using this as opposed to this. But where this is really most useful is when I want to tie transitions together. So right now I'm making a background transition, but maybe I want to go from this camera to camera 2 with the font. So those ties allow me to group these things together. It's like group selecting in Photoshop. Think of it that way, or in After Effects, right? So I group select them, and now when I make the transition, not only does it dissolve to the camera, but it also brings the font in at the same time. Now, if I want to make dissolves underneath, like I want to do some under dissolves, I can, well, that's the same source. Hey, Shayna.
Yes.
Could you fire up Mira for me, please? I want you to do an experiment and see if you can get into Mira. So you're going to load the content from the volleyball, and then you're going to open it on the control panel, okay?
Okay.
See if you can do it, all right? These are good tests. So now, once a key is active, I can make transitions under. We refer to that as a dissolve or a cut under or whatever. When you have fonts on rarely, I would tell people that I'm dissolving or mixing under, so that cameras might know that they've got a font in. Typically, the only thing that they have to concern themselves with would be a score bug, right? So in hockey and some other sports, we have an upper third or a top level bug. In other sports, we'd have a lower third bug, like right at the very bottom of the screen. It depends, like it makes sense in volleyball for the bug to be in the bottom corner because the action happens in the air, right? Sure, we might cover over a play at the line, maybe, but I'd be surprised, especially, look at that, okay, now can you roll it?
Yes, I might be able to.
Look at that. And now can you open it on the control panel? You do a right click on the replay event and you go open on control panel.
Right click.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do a right click right on where this replay event,
Yeah.
and you're gonna go open on control panel, okay?
I don't think I can do that. Open.
I need a. Okay, so on the mouse,
Uh-huh.
see, oh, you're already in. You got it open, okay. Stop. I didn't realize I thought you just loaded it into red and green, but you're good.
Oh.
You're good. You got it set up. Look at you go back there. Okay, so apparently some training has stuck. All right, back to the transition section for a second. So we're making background transitions. When we're doing sports, largely we're hot cutting. In a conventional sports system, what would happen on the big grass valley switches as an example, these numerics are actually down in this corner and everything else is up and above. So your home row is here and guys are just cutting their cameras using those first 9 keys. So the 9 cameras that you would see primarily in hockey or football or whatever would typically be cut here. So you're just cutting, you build a macro or a memory event that transitions these from being controlling your key rates and that to now these become cameras. And that's not that hard to do. To commit these to becoming a camera, you match 1 to 1, and folks will just sit here and cut their essential 9 cameras. And that means you don't have to be moving up and down like a piano, right? So, but when Ross has built this up this way, it's really easy for you to get off your home row, and then suddenly you're no longer where you should be. Back to the transition group. We have the transition type, and we have the ties. I could have, in this case, I don't have enough fingers. I could have, I missed one. There we go. I could have 5 levels of transition taking place. You would never, ever do this, but you could have 2, right? You might have key 1 and key 2 might be something that you would transition to. So those are called ties. It just allows me to tie a different type of transition to my base level transition. Or I can bring my keys in and out, or I can, add a key randomly just by going here. But typically I would add my keys here. And because we do so much animation, I would probably add my key and then ask for the animate. So and that would be an actual cue. You'd say, ready animate, animate in. Ready animate out, animate out. And that would be the key to bring in a font when it's animated. When it's a static font, what I would ask for would be ready add font, add font. Ready lose font, lose font. You could cut them in, but it's a pretty harsh transition. It's almost like it's an emergency. Like, I'm just gonna get this key on the air. All right. Elsewise in this group, we have the fader bar. Obviously, people are used to that. We have the cut button, so we can make transitions. When we're doing a slower paced show, like news or what have you, you would use preview to show your director where you're going, or your producer, right? So that they have confidence. Maybe you're going to a live hit out in the field, so you want to show them what it's going to look like before you actually go there. We're doing sports, so often it's like, ready 1, ready 3.
Yeah.
And they're like, where's the preview time? There's none. So we do direct cutting for things that move fast. We use preview for things that are moving slower. You can still perform an instantaneous transition in the form of a cut. You can still perform a dissolve. The other things you can do, in addition to dissolves, we have wipes, we have DVE moves, and we have media wipes. And the media wipe is typically how we would introduce things like replays. So where this is going to change is when we're doing something like anthems, I would be dissolving back and forth between cameras. So I'm in this mode, right? And I need to make sure that I can dissolve. If I invoke, what I did was I changed the macro. So at the end, when we do the out, it actually forces it to go from media wipe back to dissolve and on a background. So that it makes sure that you're set to do something else with your cameras. Like if I want to montage my cameras up, I don't want the Cougar wipe going back and forth between them, right? So, because if I do this, then I've got the Cougar wipe and it's kind of clunky and it's really only there to introduce replays. So what we want to be able to do instead is have those dissolves taking place, right? So it's just being aware of where you are in here. Now we don't have the ability to control these transition types. These are custom transitions that you could build, but we don't have that. So that's the base architecture, the ME, memory, keyers, transition group. It's something that we're going to play with here in a minute. Let's go down this way a little bit. Oops, you okay?
Vanilla?
All right, so we talked about hot cutting, we talked about making transitions. So, when we're doing a slower show, like when we're doing music, we might show our director. That's gonna be ready 1, ready 3. And when I make transitions, when I call for a transition, it's gonna be, in this case, ready camera 1 or ready 1. And I don't have to say, take camera 1. I can say take, or I can say 1. Ready 1, 1. And that's going to be the transition cue. If I say ready mix, then it infers that there's going to be a dissolve. I don't say ready to dissolve. There's extra syllables and phonemes in there. Mix is a single syllable. I can say ready mix really quickly. Ready dissolve. It's like a big long word, right? So ready mix 2, mix 2. Ready, I actually made a cut. Ready mix 1, mix 1. Ready mix 3, mix 3. Ready mix 4, mix 4. Ready mix 1, mix 1. So listening to what our director is saying, listening for the type of transition, and in a lot of cases, you would probably end up cutting your own show. The smaller the show, the more likely the director is also operating the switcher. There's nothing really wrong with that. With the amount of tools that we have in front of us, it's not that difficult to do. It just takes practice and those kinds of things. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about before I get into things like bus mapping and how to build a macro would be where our media wipes actually come from. In Custom Control Bank 2, you're going to see that the mnemonics, that's what these things are called, the mnemonic split. So if I go back to, say, my keyers, you'll see that there are large mnemonics, and each one of them, the camera is green, the cameras that aren't SMPTE fiber are green. Any of our SMPTE fiber cameras have a camera symbol and they are purple. Then we have expression is gold, brownish gold, and then we have red and green for our mirror channels. Blue are our media stores. We have silver, which is kind of a gray, but it's as close to silver as the mnemonic allows. Silver is the built-in clip player. It's actually stationed on the Carbonite's USB. So we would record an animation, a short animation, kind of like our media wipe, and then we would put it on that stick, and it's ridiculous it's in a stick. I wish it had its own internal memory that you could just lock stuff to, but they also know that lots of times a designer might take that stick, build something, put it on there, and they're not always with the switcher, right? So things like the media wipe is an example. When we bring the media wipe in, all that is a series of 22 Targa files. So I took the Cougar logo with a background. I made sure that at some point in time, it obscured almost the entire frame so that when you make the transition, it happens underneath the logo. That's kind of how that works. And so this is just a series that's playing back Targa file 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, something like that, right? So that's what's happening. And so playing those back in sequence, what I did is I built that in After Effects. I exported it as a Targa file, or a Targa sequence with alpha channel. It's gotta have the alpha. The nice thing about what they did with this series of switchers is, and I'll get into the media stores here in 2 seconds, the nice thing they did with the media stores is that every channel now has an alpha channel with it. In the old days, you only had a fill and a key. So if you wanted to do something like that, it would take up 2 of your channels. Now the keying happens within the media store, which we'll talk a little bit about more in just a moment. All right, so more on transitions. When we're going to replays, we've got a set of macros here. So if I have these cameras set up and I want to go to green, net camera. So I would say as a director, ready wipe green, roll wipe green. Green's on the air, and you'll notice a couple things happen there. Well, actually, I'll take this font out. because I wanted to bring it back in. I'm gonna come back out on camera 2, ready out to 2, and out to 2, and it brings the font back in. So the way the macro is built, and I'll bring the bug in as well, so it makes more sense, and I'll lose this guy. On the note of dashboard, you're going to see that you've got the ability to control the display of the graphics, which graphics you choose to display, from a dashboard panel. Like I said, we can't control the widgets. We have no way to control the scoring. All we can do is bring it on and take it off from here. So you can actually control what graphics go to air, which is kind of cool. So when we're working in our skinny formation, where we don't have a lot of people, we'd have expression here. We've got our live assist here. We'd have additional information on the upper panel. So we can, and then the plan is to have automation control over the mixer. So with a key press in macro mode, I can change or swap channels. So that's the goal. Probably won't happen for this weekend. I've got a different solution I'm working on for that. So we'll see how that plays out. Back to the macro for a second. So we're in game mode, and I want to go out to red, ready to wipe red, and wipe, roll red. Red's rolling, and then I'm going to come back on. Notice that it got rid of the score bug, right? So it's clean. Now I'm going to come back on, say, camera 2. Ready out to 2, so there's a red, a green, and an out. And the way that these are built is so that the macro is directly above the color. So if I had a transition for silver, or if I had a transition that was specific to one of the media stores, I would build it directly over top of them, so that the temptation is ready red, okay, take red. Well, yeah, you took it, but you didn't have the transition there, right? So you might have something. I'll put red back on the air. I'll go back here, which is where we were. And now I want to come back out onto camera 1. I preview. I'm going to use my preview bus, and I'm going to go out to camera 1, and it brings the font back in. How's that happen, you might ask? Well, I'm going to show you. We're going to build a macro today, okay? And we are going to get a chance to play with the switcher as well. The nice thing is that we have tomorrow and we have Friday to kind of, I'm going to, like on Friday, I'm going to take you folks right through from beginning to end of what you're going to need to do. And I'm going to have a set of steps, and we're going to write them down. Oh, Greg said do this. Greg said do this. Okay. So how do we build a macro? All right. So I want to build. Let's say I want to build the replay wipe. I want to get to red. How would that happen? So to build a macro, I like using the dashboard to help me with building these things. I find this, I can build it in here, but it's awkward. I like the mouse for this purpose. I'm going to go to the Carbonite chassis. If you see this tree view in dashboard, dashboard's this little app. It's pinned to the taskbar on this computer. So I'm going to go into my Carbonite chassis, and you'll see a drop down here for Carbonite. You open that guy up. Here's all of the different elements, and I'm just going to walk through these. Configuration. Configuration shows us how our system is set up, shows us what our reference is. Reference is the system that locks all of our production elements together in time, in terms of timing. So all of the video signals have to arrive at the switcher at the same moment for processing purposes. Otherwise we get those black bars. Remember when we had those black bars on camera 3 when we were down in the gym? What I had to do was change the timing at the camera so it would arrive at the switcher. It's getting the right information, but as camera distances change, timing changes a little bit too, right? So that's what the reference does, is it uses a signal to say, think of it this way. When you're marching an army, or like a platoon or a company or a regiment, you march everybody in time. Everybody has to be walking at exactly the same time. If they weren't, and you tried to turn them to the right or the left, you would have an army in the ditch, is what you would have. Everybody would be spilling on top of each other. They have to know how to wheel and turn, and that's what we're doing is system timing. We're saying, hey, all you signals line up and march in time, so that when I make a cut, it's synchronous, and I don't have any black bars on the screen and those kinds of things. That's part of this setup. The other side here is there's processor assignments. This is where we can actually go in and say, okay, I want to frame synchronize these cameras because they're not locked. You have locked and unlocked sources. So an unlocked source might be a satellite signal that's coming in, or something from a Dejero or what have you. So you've got those unlocked signals, and we need to lock them. That's what this processor will allow us to do. The processor also has color correction and something called processing amplifiers. So let's say we thought that green was looking pretty dark, or I thought it was looking pretty dark. I'll punch. It won't be in this case, but if I were to go to this guy, I could then change what goes into that processor. I can then go to the proc amp section. I can choose, oh, that's that camera. I'm going to turn it on, and now I can change things like the luminance, the chroma gain, hue rotation, black levels, etc., etc., etc. So I can paint an unlocked source because I don't have the same paint controls as I have on a camera. So I can do that there. Here our input section. This is where we name the mnemonics. That's where that stuff shows up, is in these columns here. Typically what I do with cameras, I might put C1 Zach, C2 might be Lincoln, C3 might be Aaron, C4 might be Dawson, right? So I'd have 4 Dawson. So, like, I like having, directors like having names because a lot of times you'll actually speak to names. The one time that doesn't work is when you have 3 Johns on your crew. And I've had that. I've had 2 Matts on camera and 2 Matts in the control room at the Keystone Center. So, hey Matt, which one? Pick a Matt, right? That was a weird one. So this is where we name all of our sources. You have 2 types of sources. External, those are the ones that are coming in as video signals into the switcher. Then we have all the internal sources. Those are things like black and the color background, and all of our media players and their alphas, the clip player. All of these things are, you can see, like, there's a lot of internal sources here, way more than would be allowed on the switcher. Also, way more than we could ever see in the monitor wall. We only have 265s. Typically, in a production center, you would probably have 4 65s and more, because it'd be out on the wings too, right? So I would have, those would be up higher. I might put my program preview down lower. Often you'll see program and preview flipped. I've been a left to right guy for a very, very long time. It is hard for me to swap program and preview. I've seen it that way for 30 years. Changing my mind now. I'm a little bit older than you guys. You might be able to make the switch, but I don't know that I can. Anyway, I would have multi-viewers up above, 1 in the middle, and then 1 down low, and then these decks might be raised and the chairs would be much higher, and so I can see over the turret, so I can see down into the monitor, especially in trucks. So there's just basically a cascade of these things in front of your face, right? And yet it might have multiple program previews. And the way you build your wall is based on the event and who's sitting where. So the technical director needs technical information in front of them. The director needs cameras and program preview in front of them. The producer needs to be able to see program preview. They often are looking after replays, they're looking after fonts, they're looking after talent. So you might see cameras and things down there that are specific to them. And then you also build the monitor wall so that it's reflective of your event. The bigger the event, the more complex the multi-viewer. A lot of directors will build a wall so that they'll have their primary or they'll lay it out like the playing field. So you might have, say, a handheld and a slash be, say, 4 and 5, and they're going to be on in the left-hand side of the playing field from where our cameras are. And then you might have 6 and 7 might be a handheld and a slash, and you'd have them on the other side, and you might have your play-by-play type follow cameras in the middle, and you build it out that way so that it's kind of like your eyes go the way the game goes. For a really simple show, like 4, 5, 6 cameras, you probably wouldn't bother doing that. You just put them in the center because you can follow that. But when you have, say, something like 55 cameras like they had at Grey Cup, then keeping track of where all that is becomes a challenge. How do we build a multi-viewer? I'm going to get to the macro thing here in 2 shakes, but when we want to build our multi-viewer, in our case, I'm going to go back to sources. If you have enough licenses, you can have the entire switcher have proc amps. So I could have I could have 24 proc amps on the switcher. We only have a license for 8. What's on air, this is how we determine what the actual program output is. So in this case, the always on air is going to be program preview, and you don't have to put anything else on air. Tally and GPIO. So tallies I can actually send from the switcher, from the frame, to different devices. Tallies would be reflective, so you could let Mira know they're on the air. You could let Expression know they're on the air. This is really important if they happen to be in different parts of buildings, or because they might, or different parts of trucks. They may not actually see or reflect that. So you have external and internal tallies. GPIOs. These are triggers, so they're 1 volt peak-to-peak triggers that you can send from the switcher to trigger an event. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. So I could say, oh, I want to have page changes on Expression, or I want to have, like Expression, we already have the ability to talk to it, so we don't really need that. But I could send GPIs to an external effects device. I could, if that was, let's say, I'm not sure if the 3-play, the 4800 of the 3P might actually have GPI input, so I could send a GPI trigger to the 3-play to fire playback. So there's a bunch of different uses for that. Canvases are things like the non-program preview displays. They might be, we call it IMAG. And those would be the LED walls. You guys have been to concerts and stuff before, so the LED presentation that happens behind performers, typically you've got, a performer that's on camera, and there's something else that's happening in the background. That's canvases. And canvases allow you to work with those weird shapes. You've seen vertical LED walls, you've seen the super long strips. You can have multiple canvases and position different video portions in those canvases, so you can control it from the switcher. So that way you're not having to have somebody else pushing buttons to try to keep up, right? It's all got to happen in one device. And then there's network and whatever else in there. Let's go back. We're gonna now build a macro. Okay, Greg's talked enough about all this stuff. So there's a bunch of these different things, live assist and custom control, and that's where we're gonna go next, is custom control. And it builds these tables. In here, we have a shot box, so this actually allows me to trigger different devices. We have the editor, this is where we're gonna create macros. We have the state attributes and the mnemonics in here as well. Typically, you will build an editor and then you'll test in the shot box. Our particular macros for our games are right here. So they're in bank 2, and they are associated with these 3 cross points. These ones are dead. I was playing around with some automation and it didn't quite work out, so I'm actually going to get rid of those. To get rid of a macro, this will be a good exercise, shows how this works. Click here and I'm going to delete it. It goes, oh, you want to delete that macro? Yes, I do. And I'm going to delete this one. Yes, I do. Okay, so those are now gone, and you can see that the mnemonic is gone as well. To build a macro, so I'll build one here. I'm going to make it white to red. It's just a matter of recording the key presses and thinking about how this is going to happen. So I know that what I want to do is I want to go from a camera. I want to go to ME1. I'm going to have Mira red. I'm going to put red on program up top. I'm going to perform a media wipe and a transition, and I'm going to make it a key because I want to lose the key and change the background at the same time. I'm going to have a key and background transition. Here's how it will play out. I press record, and now I start my process. So when it's flashing red like that, you know you're in record mode. Choose this guy, choose this guy, choose this guy, media wipe. And typically what I would also do is I would make sure that I bring in, like I would load this one. In fact, I'm going to do it again, and I'll show you how we would do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wipe. Okay, and now we're going to say, okay, well, we think that probably worked. All right, let's see if it did. So to test it, I'm going to go back to my shot box. There it is there. I'm going to lose this key, so it's what we're looking for. I'm going to go here, and now I want to, this is going to be red. So it should be a white to red. And I'm going to take this out so it's kind of where we want it to be, white to red. Oh, look at that, it worked. Holy crow. And then what we would do is build an open-ended out. By an open-ended out, I mean we want to be able to come back on any source. It could be a camera, it could be a graphic, it could be another playback channel, any of those kinds of things. but I want to be able to come back to it clean. So the one thing that I missed there was, or I didn't miss because it's already loaded, but sometimes you want to, like, because you're running a whole bunch of different types of wipes in a show, like media wipes, so you might have a different transition for going to a graphic, or you might have a different transition to bring in an animation or go to a playback of some sort. So it's never just one wipe. In our case it is, but you might have lots of macros. So you want to make sure you're loading the correct media. So I'm going to build that again, and I'll show you what we do this time. So I'm going to go to this guy, there's nothing there. All right. And we'll change the names of these. Record. So I know that I want to go to media 1. This time let's go to green. That'll be fun. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go to, in my live assist here, I'm going to go to media. Yeah, wait for it. And I'm going to look for my logo wipe. And I'm going to make sure that it loads in media 2. That's where it comes from. And that's all going to be, yes, I do want to record. I didn't record any of that because I looked away right away. Dummy. Okay, let's do it again. All right, preview. We're going to green, and then we're going to do a background and a media wipe, and then I'm going to load this guy to make sure that it's the right one. And you can see that it's actually, it should have, did it show up yet? No, it didn't. Let's make sure we do that. Yeah, so you'll see it said load this particular wipe. And then the next thing we would want would be the auto transition. And it makes our transition. Let's see how it played out. I'm gonna say stop recording. And now what we want to do is we're going to test that guy. So put a camera on the air. I'm going to put a font on the air. So there we go. We're going to go to that macro. So again, I'm in, make sure that I'm in on my correct bank, and I'm going to wipe. And it did everything that we wanted it to do. It lost the key, and then it also created the media wipe, but it made sure it played the right one. If I don't do that, let's say I have a rotating blinds, like a glowing rotating blinds thing to get to a graphic from a camera. I could hit, if I didn't put the right media wipe in there, it might actually use that to get to the replay because that's what's loaded. In the truck world, we use something called a spot box. So what is happening at Mira, or what is happening at EVS, in the big truck world, it's all EVS. There's a few dream catchers, which is a Canadian product, but as is the Mira, but for the most part it is EVS. So we actually have multiple EVSs with multiple channels. It'd be anywhere from 6 to 8 channels or more, and it depends on whether you're doing things like HD or you're doing 4K. That will determine the number of channels as well. But we're going to obligate at least 2 sets of channels to key and fill, and that's where our animations would come from. So but they also have IDs, so you have to load those IDs so they're specific to the type of transition you want to make. So there are different types. I've only got the one wipe, so because that's the only thing I had time to make. All right, now it's time for y'all to build a macro, okay? Because that's, you know what, it's kind of fun. I think it's fun. Do you think this is fun? 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 Dawson's like, yeah. All right, so let's start it off with, because Aaron's right here. We'll get Aaron to start this. Okay, so Aaron, what I want to do here, we're going to start on this camera, and what I want to do is let's do a white to red, okay? So first things first is we're going to choose custom 2 there. So click on custom 2. Okay, and you're going to start your record. So see you're at the very top, yeah. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start to press some buttons. And all the macro is recording of a series of button presses to create an effect, a transition of some sort. Okay? You can use macros to do a whole bunch of things. Turn audio on and off, adjust pan tilt zoom cameras. That's kind of what I'm actually hoping for next term, is to have the license that will allow me to have, so I can press a button and cameras will salvo to where I want them to be. We're still, if you want the dynamics, you'll still have to have an operator. But if you are doing like a really simple show, and you just want to be able to toggle cameras back and forth, then you can do it directly from the switcher. Okay, our replay is going to come from ME1, so I want you to press ME1 here, okay? And then we're going to, let's make it red. So you want to put red into program on ME1, yep. And then what we're going to do is we want that to be a key 1 and background transition. So you're going to press both those at the same time, key 1 and background, same time. Okay, it's going to be a media wipe. And then let's not forget to do the thing that I forgot to do. I want you to take that Cougar's wipe and load it into M2. That's where our media wipe is coming from. Click, drag. I know it feels weird, right? And you may actually have to, hold on, it might, there you go. See how this red bar is here?
Yeah.
It's almost out of memory. I'm gonna have to flush it so that we have more memory. Then the last piece of the puzzle is auto. Look at that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do to test this, stop recording. And now let's go to your shot box. See in the very bottom left corner there, shot box. Now what I want you to do is let's just set this up so it kind of looks the way it would if we were doing a game. And you can either press this button, that's the macro button, or you can use the shot box.
Okay.
Go ahead and execute. Look at that. That's green, or that's red, right? Awesome. And now what we would do is we would use our out to get back out to camera 1 and out to 1 with the font. Okay? So that's how that works. That's a pretty simple macro. They can become way more complicated than that, where you would actually have, you might have a macro that allows you to make a transition to a 2-box effect, and you'd actually have boxes fly with a squeeze. We call that an effects dissolve. So maybe I have a macro and I'm going to do a transition, boxes fly up, and then it has a hold. A hold says, okay, the macro button will be flashing, I'll squeeze this guy forward. And then a hold again, squeeze this guy forward. So you could actually have, in one macro, you could have all those transitions. Typically, they might be a separate macro to do the flying of the boxes, just so you have the choice as to whether you're going to, fly person A or person B, and you can move them back and forth. And if you get them in the wrong order, you get crazy transitions going on. Okay, so it's Dawson's turn now. So what we have to do now is we're here, but we need to get back to here, and we need to change the state of the switcher. So what we're gonna do is, let's go to your next custom control there, Zach. So custom control 4. Okay, and what we have to think about now is we know already that we're on a source. We don't have to we don't have to delegate here. It's open-ended, so there's no source associated with this. So it's actually a little bit simpler, but it seems weird, like, hey, I've got no sources, how am I coming back? It's open-ended. It doesn't care what the starting point is, and it doesn't care what, you get to determine where the end point is, what you're coming back to. So in this case, Zach, we're gonna hit record. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is, quite literally, there's gonna be a key 1 background transition, media wipe, and just for giggles, go to media, and grab that wipe and put it into M2. And it's loaded it. And then what we have to do, in this case, is we are going to make an auto transition. We come back with that's exactly what the result is we were looking for. We want to be able to come back with the bug. There's one more little step here, and this is the only part that's a little more complicated than what you guys had to build. We have to insert something called a pause, and then we're going to change the state of the switcher so that we come back so we can make dissolves and background transitions. Because if it's here, and now I start to do, it's going to go wipey on me, right? So our out has to change the state of the switcher. So to do this, do you see where it says pause there, Zach?
Yep.
So pause, yeah, click on that guy. We're gonna make it 30 frames. Yeah, and 30, enter. And then what you have to do is you have to append. And then you click done. And then you can hit stop record. So the point of that is, gents, is that if we had that state of change where we're going to change from a background transition to a dissolve. Did we change the transition type? transition type is, no, you know what? We've got one more thing to do here. So we're gonna do an append record here, my bad. So that's the pause, and now what I want you to do is you're gonna press background and dissolve. And then you can hit stop record. And what that does, that pause allows the switcher to catch a breath, and then it will change it back to the thing you're more likely to do. The only time we want to make a wipe is when we're going to the replay or coming back from the replay. Everything else is going to be a dissolve or a hard cut, right? Okay, so now to put the proof in the pudding here that this worked, we'll trigger, let's go to red. So we wiped red, perfect, there, or green in this case. So now what we want to do is test your out. So now, and let's go out to camera 2 in this case, just for giggles. And out to 2. And that worked, and this worked. So now I can go over here and director might say, ready to mix camera 1, mix 1. As opposed to, ready to mix 1, and oh, there's a big sloppy wipe, right? But if we didn't have the pause, the switcher can't process it. So it needed the pause to say, okay, catch my breath, because everything else that we're doing there is exactly 1 frame between each of those things. It is all happening instantaneously, essentially, right? So it's going, doing all this stuff, then it has to be able to go, okay, now I can make this transition. So yes, it will be 1 second after the completion of the wipe, but if you're making a transition 1 second after you wipe back from a replay, you're probably not doing it right. So, did that make some sense?
Yeah.
It's not too hard to build them. It's just about thinking about what you want to do. And while we're here, if you do me a favor, and if Lincoln can scoot over here. So if you look at these different things in here, so if you click on, you can hold, pause, loop, play, a custom control. So you can actually have a custom control buried within a custom control. Click on where it says special command category there, so where it says, and just click on select. Now, if you click on, let's go to, well, just go through this. Just click on switcher. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do that are specific to the switcher that might not be available to you on the panel. We go back in there, Zach. If you look at, let's go to multi-viewer. You could actually have things change in the multi-viewer in a macro. So I could actually, hey, I want to look at this. And so you could actually change what shows up in your multi-viewer. So that can be kind of cool. We select again, audio mixer. So right now I don't have, there's a driver that's, and a license that's required that would allow us to have communications with an audio mixer. That Yamaha back there, I'm hoping that we will get this license so that we can then have that as a macro. I can then say, oh, I want to maximize, I want to have red in, and I want to have all other things muted or volume at 0. So I can, with a macro, I can change those levels. You would actually see the faders move on the board, even though you're up here on the switcher. If we go back to the next one there, Zach, if you go to devices, so in here we have, you can click on Ross expression, and there's a whole sequencer up, sequencer down. You can do a whole bunch of different things in here to help. I could trigger different events from the from expression directly on the switcher. So maybe I want to always have a certain graphic come in with a yes.
I gotta run the radio.
Oh yeah, shit. I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were going that fast. So, well, is anybody else off the radio? Okay, you got to run too.
Yep.
Aaron, we'll pick this up again tomorrow. Okay.
Watch the vid.
Are we doing more
I'll send a vid
orientations
tonight.
tomorrow?
Okay.
Are we doing
Okay.
more orientations tomorrow?
I have so little time with you guys.
Said that kind of harsh. I'm sorry.
Do anything.
I'm gonna get you. We're gonna build a macro now.
Awesome.
Okay. Dawson, are you still with me, or are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like absolutely like to my best, and I was listening. It's just that I got kind of lost in all the information a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to build one.
Okay, perfect. I
And
think
then
that'll
so
help reinforce. it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
like, and then we might even have time to build a box or two. So there's, I can have, just so we can go through it, I can have macros for different ROS devices like the Ultrix, Tria, the video server. I can have pan-tilt zoom cameras, audio mixer, P-bus, which we wouldn't actually use, program bus recall registers and things like that. We wouldn't necessarily use for our purposes. what you need to do is build a macro. So this time, what we're gonna do is we are going to build a macro to, let's do a well, just so it's different, let's do a macro to media 1.
Okay.
Okay, so what we'll do, I'm gonna trade spots.
Sure.
Here, I'll just move this guy out of the way, Dawson, and I'm gonna just slide down a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna choose this custom control here.
Custom control 5.
Yeah. Click record. Okay, so now we want to we're still going to go up to M1, ME1. So you're going to preview ME1, and you'll see it says bus source preview ME1. Okay, so that's the first thing that's going to happen. The next thing that's going to happen is you're going to press, we're going to press where we're going. So it's going to be media 1. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to press key and background, key 1 and background at the same time. Yep, both same time. There you go. And then you're going to press media wipe. And then what you're going to do is you're going to load that media wipe. Go to media and click and drag that guy into M2. And it's kind of already there, but you can see this is a really important part of the function. Typically, if I was building macros and I had lots and lots of wipes, I would put at the very beginning of the macro a clear. I would actually eject whatever's in there. It would show up in here. Then I would load the wipe that I want specifically for that macro. And then like maybe I want to do a blinds wipe. I don't want to have something where it animates, where the things curl in or something like that. So to build that, I would use a different wipe, which means I'd have to load something else in there. Okay, the last piece of the puzzle for you, Dawson, Lincoln, is to press, auto transition. And it made our wipe. There we go. So now what we've got is we have everything that we want. We can hit stop recording. And the way to test this, put some clean sources up, and let's bring this font in. Cool. And now what I want you to do is wipe to media 1. So that's that guy.
Right here.
Yep, wipe. There you go. And then your out would be, if you use the same out, you can go out to camera 1 and out. See, because it's open-ended, it doesn't care what their beginning source is or what the end source is. Open-ended means wherever I was to wherever I want to be.
Why was it this one again?
Well, this one is the one you just built.
Oh, right.
Right, so we haven't named it. So if I wanted to name this,
that's why.
let's say we wanted to name this Wipe M1. And I'm a big all caps guy.
For sure.
Wipe M1. And then what would happen is it will show up and it
There we
shows up
go.
here, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
So those, and I'll get rid of them because it'll freak people out, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you wanted to wipe there, wipe. There you go, and you're gonna come out to camera 2, and you use your out and out to 2.
Nice.
And that's how that works. Okay?
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So those are the basics. We're gonna build something else.
Okay.
We're gonna build something a little more complex. This will be fun. Okay.
All right.
But slide down there. And if you want to grab a chair, Dawson, you certainly can. Right. So something a little more complex. And believe me, I can sit here and play this all day. It's so much fun. The fact that we have this technology in front of us at the school level is pretty cool. I'm gonna start with keys out. So what I want to do is I maybe want to have a transition to 2 boxes. I want to have 2 cameras on screen at the same time. So what I'm going to do is to do that, I have to build it first, and then I have to. There is, I think I still have a clean. Where's my captures? There we go. So this is going to be part of my macro. I'm going to actually have this is my background. That's what the boxes are going to sit on. So, but I have to load it first, and so I'm going to load this guy into here eventually. Dump that. Come on. Oh, it's really slow because the memory is just lagging. So there's my clean BG. And it's coming out of media 1. So it's going to be part of the inclusion of this. So the very first thing I do is I'm going to start with, I can preview ME1 so I can see what I'm doing. So I can actually see, okay, that's ME1. Okay, so I'm going to build it over top of media 1. That's our look. So I want to put my boxes over top of that. So now to put boxes in, what I need to do is use keyers. So I'm going to use, in this case, I'm going to use key 1 and key 2 for my boxes. I'm going to use key 3 for my lower third because I don't have a lower third associated with this. So the first thing I do is select this key. It's going to be a DVE key. And because I've got moving video, I'm going to use red and green as my key source. So I have red, and then when I cut this on, okay, it looks like that. But then when I grab this guy,
Oh yeah, I think I remember this from last year. I think.
yep, we did a little bit of
Yeah.
this. Now, two shots don't fit in the same
Right.
window here, right? So what I need to do is crop this a little bit. Well, it immediately goes into the position and crop menu. That's what Live Assist does for us. So I can use this, or I can be more precise with these tools. I've got two different places to do it. I could use a mouse, I can use touchscreen, or I can use this. So if I go to next, here's my horizontal crop, so I'm gonna crop
Yeah.
these edges in a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to leave it as a single shot here. So then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back to my, I'm gonna put a little border on there too. So border and on. And then what I'm gonna do is just make it a little tiny border here. That's not a tiny border. That's a tiny border.
Yeah.
I don't like these big chunky things.
No.
That's so old school. It's like from 500 years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So this is how you would build like those
Double
new
ender
ships, right?
boxes.
Yeah.
So then we go back here. Come on. Okay, so the way I can get back to my base level menu, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my X position. I'm going to change my Y position because I want to have room for a lower third at the
Mhm.
bottom. And so that's the first one. Okay. So then the next one, I'm going to have to use another keyer. But what I can do is I can copy from one to the other and then just change the source. And I might screw this up because it's been a while since I did this. Press and hold. Oops. Yeah. So it copied it. I have to build it again.
No
Craig
way.
I did a dummy thing. So
To build it again?
yeah. Well, it takes no time to do it. So I just made a mistake. That's all. I'll just make my size, and then bring my horizontal crop in, build my border, and then I could like that point. Yeah, sure, that's fine for this particular exercise. I'm gonna go back to my main menu here, sort of do that. I'm gonna go to my X position, I'm gonna go to my Y position, and in this case, I'm gonna go, which way did I go the last time? I think it's this guy to this. Oh, I did it again. It's this guy to this. So it's this is my destination. This is what I'm copying. I made him. Okay, we'll do it one more time. My bad. So like I said, it's been a while since I last built these. So just a little thing that I got to remember. So there's that. We're gonna do our horizontal crop.
Have you done anything live with this setup?
Not for this year. Like we have had not nearly enough time in this
Yeah.
room, right? Which is disappointing to me, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, like we didn't
Again.
build anything like this for Westman this week. I don't think.
We didn't really have a need for boxes, but
That's
we
true.
will. You know, we did a little bit. We had Tyler and Hayden in boxes a couple times,
Right.
just to do it, right?
Absolutely.
So this is my source, this is my destination. Are you freaking kidding me? Okay, this guy. All right. Holy crow, the old man is having a hard time, boys. Cut it on. Oh, at least I'm getting lots of practice with
That's
this.
true.
But
Trial
that
and error,
guy, no, that's not where I want that. He's having a day. Oh, yeah. Oh, God, what a mess. That is funny. So, again, this to this. Source and this to, yeah. So this is my destination, this is my source. Okay, so hold down the, all right, okay, so there, we'll do this. All right, so I got that, and we'll just really quickly crop this guy in, I'll reduce the size a little bit. I'll horizontally crop. I can't believe I've done this like 9 times now, but I'm really getting really good at it. There's that. I don't like that postage. It's a little small, so I'm gonna go back up to this level of menu. You can always hit this to go back to your base level of menu, and then crop is a little bit much, so I'm gonna uncrop it, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back. Well, that's not what I want. And then I'm gonna go X position, I'm gonna go Y position, and then it's right. I'm just gonna make sure source destination. Let's do this. I'll do this. No. So destination source. Source. Destination source. So I want to go this way. I'm going to go destination source. And now I'm going to change that to green. And I'm going to cut this key on. So now it's a different box.
Oh, yeah.
And now I've got the same parameters. That's the whole point of this, is I got the same parameters. And all I have to do is pull that guy over. I marry the edges. Those are pretty clunky boxes. I'm not real happy with my borders, but that's okay. Then what I can do is I can say, okay, well, need that to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to blow this guy up a little bit, maybe about 65%. I'm going to put him way over here. I could probably go a little bit more yet. I could probably go about 65. I'm going to drop it down on the y-axis a little bit, and then I'm going to go back over to this guy. I'm going to make it 65 so it matches. And again, my apologies for that really boneheaded batch of moves that I made. That was terrible. And then give them just maybe a little bit of breathing room. They're not symmetrical. I'm a big believer that things got to be matched up. And then, so I'm just going to adjust my Y a little bit. And I'm going to give myself a little bit more X position this way. And I'm going to go back over this channel. I'm going to give my X position this way. And then that gives me room for my lower third. So then the lower third, I'm going to select that guy. I'm going to make it an auto key out of here. Let's bring in a lower third. And let's just use it, one of our athlete lower thirds here. And I'll put that key on. And I'll take out the goes this way. Take out that. There we go. So obviously it'd be a much different look in terms of our. Now what I need to do is I need to store that. So I need to be able to put that into a memory location. So to look at my memories, my memory banks, I'm going to do that because I've been building up here. What I want to do is I want to look to see what I've got. And I can change the context of this, so this can become memory banks, and I can just toggle through whatever memory banks I have. Let's go back here. So I know that I've got these memories in, these are all built. So I've got lots of room that I can store. So this is memory bank 0. And let's go to 9. And back to here. Come on, you. I can store, the way that this works is to, you can see in here too. I can actually toggle through and see where I've got, I'll put it in bank 6. So the way this works is I'm going to go to, where's my bank build again? I'm going to go to store, and I'm going to go to bank 6, and I'm going to store it in 1. Because I've got room there. So it's going to be stored at 61. And then what would happen is when I want to store that, 6.1 and enter. And you'll see here it says any one. And what we need to do is make sure that we've got our chroma keys, all our MEs. The attributes will be all the media. I want to make sure those are saved correctly. Recall mode. We can have effects dissolve if we want. I'm just going to go through here. All transitions. So these are the things that have to be included in this effect. And then what would happen is, go back to here. And so there's store and recall. So these medias have to be stored. Effects duration is 30 frames. I'm gonna go back to bank 6. I'm gonna go to this guy, and looks good. So now we can press store. So in some ways, doing it from the panel is one thing, but doing it from here is much more effective. And you can see it's got the inclusions listed. So then when we recall that, so if I were to look at MU1, I want to recall this. Now I hope because I was pressing some other buttons, I hope it hung on to it. We'll exit this and exit that. And now if I want to recall, and again, like I haven't really even had a chance to play with this, so I may actually have an oops here. Yeah, I have an oops. I oopsed it. So
Oh, this turned, when you hit that?
yeah, so these
It all
are
turned
so
red.
what happened was when I was fooling around, I was recalling other things. So I'm actually going to go back into these other banks so I can recall, see what's happening here.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Oh,
boy.
okay.
Just
You're going to recall them from, as opposed to trying to recall them from, and that's at, as opposed to trying to recall them from the switcher, you can do that. Recalling them from the live assist panel is probably more intuitive because you get to see what you're dealing with here, so I can know where I am. If I want to reset the ME, I can press local row and store, and it zeroed everything out. Notice that these are all gone now. Now, that was a terrible demo because I haven't played with it nearly enough, and I've only built a couple macros this year, and I haven't built any boxes, so that's why I kind of, but I don't remember, and plus I'm talking at the same time. We're gonna build some boxes. So, what we have to do, we're gonna go back to our media, and we're going to use media 2, or it should went into media 2, it should have gone into media 1. I'm gonna get us back to where we want. Oh, I know why, because those other macros, those other memories have those things as part of their inclusions. So it cleared out everything that I've done. So that's why, as you see in M3 there, it loaded data Citaboin. That was part of those other banks, those memory banks. Okay, so Lincoln, you and I are going to work on this together. Dawson's recording, so we can let that happen. Okay, so the very first thing we want to do is we're putting Media 1 in program and preview, just so you can see it up on the monitor wall. This is all pre-built stuff. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to use Media 1 as our background source. So go ahead and press Media 1. Yep. And there it is. Okay, cool. And the reason why we can see it is because it's here. If we cut over here, we don't see it. Now you can see it. Okay? So next thing we want to do is we're going to put some boxes into play. So maybe you'll remember to do this better than I did. All right, so what we have to do is we're going to select key 1. Okay? And we're going to select the DVE key. And we're going to select, in this case, we're going to put red into that key right up here. Yeah, okay. So now we're going to cut that key on. Hit select again for me. Here's your, reduce the size to about 65%. There you go, keep going, 65. Okay, cool. Now the next thing we're gonna do is you've got X and Y positions, so you can move things left and right, up and down. You hit next. This is where the crops are, so you can actually change the horizontal crop. That's the vertical crop, that's gonna take off the top. You probably wanna make it skinnier. A little bit more, you can probably something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next, if you hit next again, you can actually freeze. So you can turn the freeze on and off. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
So the hit next again, this is where your border is. If you push in on this guy, it opens up the border parameters. You can have a bunch of different types of borders, you can have different sizes, you can have different colors. So go ahead and hit make it about 0.5 maybe. There you go, nice little thin border. just barely perceptible, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which I like. You can change perspective, hit next again. You can change the color. It's a little preset for red, and then you can just change the parameters, hit next again. Here's where you can actually change hue, saturation, and luminance of the border that you're creating if you click again. Transparency, internal softness, external softness, hit next again. Bevel, crop, overhang, hit next again. And then you're back. So now what we want to do is we want to go back to our base level menu. So if we hit back, we're gonna have a problem. Hit select. Now you can actually change the position of this. Let's stick this guy up in the upper left corner. And bring it up a little bit more. And over towards me a little bit more. There you go. Okay, cool. So that might accommodate 2 windows. It looks like it might be a little, so you can see where the PRV is. If you, and this is not something I did very well. I wasn't looking up at all when I did this, but you could actually go back to your next page, your horizontal crop. And now if you horizontally crop it, you can sort of line it up on the middle of the R if you want. And then skinny it and then go to back to position, which would be, just that guy. And then, see now you're right in the middle of the screen there. So when you bring your next box in, it's gonna be, so now, you remember it's gonna be, if you go, it should be,
This one first and then this one?
it should be, destination source. Or no, it goes source,
I think it was it?
you go ahead and do it. Do it, man. Press it and go. Oh, yeah, you did it. Hey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna go again, destination source. That's how you can prove it. So, okay, so now we're gonna go back to this guy.
Okay.
And what we wanna do is we are going to make it green. So you make that one green. Yep, you can see over here it's green. Cut that one on. And now what you can do is by pressing select again and take your X position and just move it over. There you got 2 boxes. Keep going. There you go.
Do that type of thing?
I like that. And I'd say probably what I would
Oh,
do
I
here,
need to try it, I think.
I would probably go this way a little bit with this guy. Just a hair, and then I'd go this way with this guy. I like them kind of married, but I want
Yeah.
to have them symmetrical
Mhm.
on both sides.
For sure.
So those are 2 good-looking boxes. Now we gotta save them. So now what we're gonna do it differently than I did it.
Okay.
Memory. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this, we're gonna make sure you're in store. Whoops, I accidentally, I feel like I pushed it. We're gonna put it at 62, so press 2 there. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we want to have our medias, all media. These are the attributes. The inclusions are, we just need ME1 in this case. We don't need any of our chroma keys, so you can turn those off. So all we have are ME1 as our inclusion. We have the media, so it should remember that media store. And you can take off the chroma keys. You could force it to roll a clip if you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And then what we want to do is just make sure that in ME1, in this category, that it has all key 1. Yeah, that's good. So it's going to have all those attributes. So then what we can do with that is you can, with this selected, hit store. Right? Cool. And now, in order for us to test that this worked, we're going to go back to recall and go to bank 6.
Sorry.
That's okay. And
I'm
go to
that,
bank
right?
6. It's going to take a couple of seconds for it to catch up. So see, it's got MEP1, it's got Chrome key 1, 2, 3, 4. It has all that stuff in there. So if we were to recall this, nothing wacky happened. To proof that it actually worked, I want you to hit local row and store. It blanked it out. Now recall your effect by pressing it down.
Whoa.
There you go. And so what happened, the reason why I did that, the other thing that happened was we also have turned on the effect dissolve is turned on in here as well. There's nothing really wrong with that, because you would typically go to this as a static. So that's how you build a 2-box. Then you would have variations of this. I would put this in the center, I'd get rid of this guy altogether, and then what would happen is I would be able to fly, say my left-hand box comes forward, my right-hand box
Right.
comes forward, and then I can have this kind of stuff going on. So let's say we've got, neither of you are particularly sports guys-ish?
I'm a sports entertainment guy.
Okay, sports entertainment, all right, so that's fine. But, did you watch wrestling then?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've got a match in progress and they want to actually show something that happened earlier in the match, right? So what they do is here's the live action in full frame, they squeeze it back, and now they have, moment to go, right?
Yeah.
And they show some big epic move, and then maybe they even fly that, but they would never fly it forward because you don't want to take away from what's happening in the match.
Right.
And so they have the 2-box, and then it's like, back to live action. So that's where that effect is all going to come into play. Okay, so that's how that plays out.
And we would make it so we can do that
Yeah,
here.
so essentially what would happen now is you'd take these settings and you would actually say, okay, so we're going to store another one. So you always make sure you store first. I should have built, as opposed to mucking around in here, I should have just built it here because it's easier with the live assist. So if I wanted to do that, I want to do something like I'm going to squeeze, I'm going to start with let's say that's live action, green is live action and red is the replay of the big body slam or whatever
Right.
that they wanted to show. So this is where we're gonna go to, this is where we're gonna go from. A little backwards, but that's okay. We can make sense of that. So what I would do is with this setup, I would do something like this. I would start with knowing that I'm gonna have the right full frame. I'm going to take my left channel, this guy, I'm going to select it. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to say, okay, I want you to go away, go all the way away. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, what I really want to do is I want to have this be full size and full frame. I go to my next channel and I do something like this. So I'll go X position. When I double click on the button, it goes back to its normal position. Go back to this, I go here, double click, it zeroes it off. I think we got a little elevation on there, so I'm gonna go back to this, I'm gonna make sure this guy and this guy, and I'm gonna turn that border off. And the border 0. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to our memory. And where's my memory? Media, no, memory, there we go. So I've been building this thing. So now what I want to do is make sure I check all of those things. So I know that I don't need to worry about mini MEs, canvases, chroma keys. I know it has to be ME1. I know that I want